Hello, it is June 5th, 2020, and I'm here with Christelle Gue from the Department of Entomology. She's our fruit crop entomologist and knows an awful lot about pollinators, but also, as we're going to talk about today, a little bit about some other flying insects. So, Christelle, we are hearing an awful lot about murder hornets. Tell me, what are murder hornets?
Okay, so murder hornets are, it's a kind of a misnomer because they do not murder anybody. If anything,
That's
they
good.
do murder honeybees, but we
Mm.
don't really know where the name came from, but it's something that got lost in translation. But what they are is they are true hornets. So they are Vespa is the name for the hornets, the genus name, and Mandarinia is the name of the species. So it's Vespa mandarinia,
Okay.
and it's what murder hornets are. So they're also known and should be known as the giant Asian hornet, is
Okay.
what they're known as, not as murder hornets.
Okay. So, if murder hornets or giant Asian hornets are very newsworthy right now, don't we have hornets here? What's the big deal about these?
So the big deal is that technically we don't have any hornets that are native to North America.
Oh, interesting.
We do have one hornet species. There's only 23 species worldwide. And we do have one that was introduced already from Asia that lives on the east side. And so we have them south of here. We don't really have them in Wisconsin. But they're really, these are the largest hornets in the world. So that's one part that's very significant.
Okay.
The other part that's significant is the hornet that we have in the US that's not native does not kill honeybees, and these are known to be giant. So I'll talk a little bit about their size too, but they're giant, but they also have an impact on honeybees. And so
Okay.
that's also part of why we're talking about them a lot.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that they're the largest one, I'll just tell you about the size. They are about almost 2 inches in length. They have a wingspan of about 3 inches, and their stinger is about 1/4 of an inch. And
Wow.
so they can deliver quite a significant amount of venom that's pretty potent and pretty painful. And so they are also a problem as far as like able to somehow, if you get attacked like and unintentionally in a way, like you're threatening a nest or something, you can be attacked and the wounds are really bad and can kill people. So
Okay.
actually, let me go to my number that I have here. It says that in Japan, they cause an estimated 30 to 50 deaths per year of
Wow.
people. So it can
Wow.
happen.
Usually in cases then where someone has gotten too close to a nest.
Exactly. So hornets in general are not aggressive at all.
Toward
And like I said, we don't really have hornets, but we have our yellow jackets. We have our a bold-faced hornet. That's one that's those big wasps that are black and white that are pretty common, even here in Wisconsin. But these are not true hornets. But none of them will attack you intentionally. There's
Okay.
none of that. And with insects in general, that's what it is. It's really if they get threatened, if you throw rocks at their nest, or if you get too close to the nest and they're trying to protect their brood, that's when they might, be a little more aggressive. But I've seen pictures online where you can actually see the punctures in the arms of the people that got stung. So they're pretty significant.
Wow. Um, so they never attack a human intentionally, or they're not aggressive toward humans when they are attacking bumblebees. Is that intentional aggression, or is that also just kind of accidental collision?
So no, it's not bumblebees, it's honeybees.
Oh, honeybees only. Okay.
Yeah. So it's intentional. And so that's the part that's a little bit scary, considering we have so many problems with honeybees already
To
from
begin with.
all the different problems we know about. What they do is that during their normal life cycle, and I can talk about their life cycle too. It's a very standard life cycle. But during their time when they're starting to feed their larvae, they're feeding insects. So like any other wasps, they're meat eaters. So they will go and get other insects or spiders, bring that to the nest and feed that to their larvae.
Okay.
But there's a point in time later in the season where they have reproductives. So they produce the new queens and the new males that will then mate. These do not forage. All they do is mate, and then everybody dies, and the new queens that just mated go and hide for the winter, just like a bumblebee would do.
Ah, okay.
And at that stage, they have this time where they go and attack honeybee hives. So there's been description from older literature where those attacks are pretty systematic. And so I'll tell you that because that's quite interesting. So I'm looking at my notes at the same time because there's 3 stages to that. So that will be in the late summer, early fall. What they'll do is they go through a hunting phase first. So some of those worker hornets will catch some bees, some honeybees. They'll decapitate them. They'll turn them into a little bit of a meatball and bring that and feed that to their larvae.
Okay.
Then they go into what they call the slaughter phase. Researchers have called that the slaughter phase. So that'll be in the fall. And at that time, what they do is that they will recruit a couple workers and they'll go and mark a hive. And once they have that hive marked, so they recruit workers, hornet workers, they mark that hive and they'll go in, 20, 30 hornets will go and kill all the workers in the hive.
Wow.
They kill everybody. They just slaughter them. They don't eat them. They just kill them. They decapitate them. They drop them. So you have a ton of dead bees there. And then the third phase is called the occupation phase. And at that point, the hive is theirs. They defend it.
Yeah.
They go into the hive, the honeybee hive. They collect the larvae and the pupae. And that's what they'll bring back to their hive and feed their reproductives.
Oh.
So it's pretty interesting because they do that in a pretty systematic manner. What's also interesting is that this is something they do on the European honeybee, the one that we have, Apis mellifera. In Japan, where most of them are, and I didn't talk about that, but they're from Eastern, Southern Asia. And in Japan and Korea is where they have the highest numbers that people have reported. And that's where they're native from. But there they have another honeybee species. And that honeybee species, and right now I can't remember the name, Apis cerana.
Okay.
That one has developed mechanism to protect themselves from the hornets. So one of them is that they'll vibrate their wings and kind of make the hive shimmery. So the hornets have a hard time looking for it when they're in the hunting phase at the beginning.
Interesting.
Or they lure them into the hive, and then they surround the hornet and then vibrate their wings so that their muscles create a lot of heat and kill the hornet by just warming it up. But honeybees that we have, Apis mellifera, don't do that, obviously, because it didn't co-evolve with the hornets.
Yeah.
So so that will be one of the problems. And can you remind me what the question was on the honeybees?
That was just I was just wondering, they don't attack, murder hornet. Murder isn't so appropriate for humans, but it sounds like it certainly is appropriate, or even decimate or wipe out toward honeybees. So then you talked about where they came from. How did they get to the U.S.?
So nobody knows. They have been detected in 2019 in Washington State and in British Columbia in Canada.
Okay.
And these are 2 major ports of entry from Asia.
Sure.
So most likely they ended up on some shipping boats that come into those ports.
Okay.
And that's how they were found. But they were found in northern Washington and then in British Columbia.
Okay, so how much do they travel terrestrially? Do we have to worry about them in Wisconsin, or on what time frame would we start worrying about them in Wisconsin?
So right now we don't have to worry at all because there's only been in Washington State, there's been 2 detects, I think it was last year in 2019, and these were workers. The biggest worry that was starting this year is that in May somebody found a dead hornet, and it turned out to be a queen. And they did some analysis back in DC and found that it was a mated queen. So that means that it probably overwintered and then probably established, and they can produce several hundred queens, right? So that can be a problem as far as them expanding. So right now, there's only very few that have been found, and the Department of Agriculture in Washington State and as well in Canada, I didn't look at all their program there, but it's the same thing. It's eradication is the goal.
Good.
We are not trying to let them establish. So they have a very big grid of trapping and of citizen scientists that help in reporting, and that's how it happened. Somebody found the dead hornet, reported it, brought it back to the Department of Agriculture, and so they were able to know exactly what it was. Their goal there is to they have traps is to get the workers or queens that they would catch in the traps, not kill them, but to tag them either with some kind of tracking device or looking for following them back to the nest and look with heat cameras to see if they can find them.
Okay.
They're warmer than the ambient temperature and the nest is even warmer.
Okay.
But that's the goal, right?
At which point, if we could have a slaughter phase to keep them out of the US and keep them out of North America. Okay.
Yeah, so eradication is the goal. Here, we don't have to worry about them for a long time. What we can learn from, which is interesting, is that at first when I heard about it, I was thinking it was the same species. It's a giant hornet that was found in Europe, and that is well established for the last decade now in France. Okay. And so it's not the same species. This one is another one. It's the giant hornet. But that other one in Europe is Vespa velutina, also kills honeybees and has caused tremendous damage to the honeybee industry there. Okay. And so what they are trying to do is see what they can learn from the velutina in Europe and see what it would look like here. These are bigger. Okay. They are known in Europe, the Vespa velutina, to travel 60 miles per year, I think, or 60 kilometers, something along those lines. Let me see if I can find that information again. So 60 kilometers per year. Okay. So there's that kind of little bit of a worry that if they were to establish, that's how fast they could travel, which is quite, it's not very fast, but it's still something. And they can travel from their nest about 20 miles. So that's something to think about.
20 miles from their nest, and then also a migration of, looks like 37 miles per year, and then.
Yeah, 60 kilometers per year, they were saying. So okay. It's something to think about. It's nothing to worry about. One thing that I think we need to keep an eye on is that Vespa crabro that's established here looks like it could be. So in states where they have that European hornet, there's going to be a lot of people worried that they have the giant Asian hornet when it's actually not. It's the one that's now well established here and is not a problem. It's rare. You can find it, but it's not a problem of any significance.
Okay. So we've talked about the ecological and human impact if they're established in the US, and it does sound like it would be a problem for our apiaries and also for honeybees kind of in general, but hopefully we are on this early enough that we can eradicate, and then hopefully we'll be able to have maybe encourage international shipping to do some kind of pre-docking get rid of hornet nest procedures or something like that to prevent it from happening again. Anything else that you want to add on this topic?
I would just add that I suspect that now this is going to be on the list of the Department of Ag in all the states. And so we have, everybody should know that our Department of Ag does all of this kind of monitoring for insects. And they continue that. They always do monitor for insects that are even established. They do a very extensive scouting and monitoring. So I suspect, obviously, that that's on their list of insects they're going to be looking at. We'll be looking at that too. And then we just want people, if they see something, to just let us know if they see something that they're worried about. This would be, like I said, 2 inches long about. It's big, it's significant. We have things that look like in the size, like the cicada killer, for example, but these are very orange. They have an orange head. They're very different. And so we can find a lot of information, but if people are worried, they can always send a picture and we can just tell them, no, don't worry about it. But we'll keep an eye on that with the Department of Ag and other entomologists, obviously.
And that they can reach you at entomology.wisc.edu or any specific part through there? So what's the best way to reach out?
There's our insect diagnostician, PJ Leash. He's going to be the one that people can send pictures to. I'm not worried about anybody sending pictures for a long time.
Yes.
But me too. I mean, if we're talking about fruit growers in Wisconsin, they can always ask me and I can always tell them if it is or not. It's Perfect. Very easy to identify. So it will be, it's not a little tiny fly. It's a huge wasp.
Okay. You will notice. You will know right away. Yeah. Well, anything else, or we can let people get on with the rest of their afternoon?
Okay. No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christelle.
Okay.